So today we will see only these concepts: logical access controls, physical access controls, and environmental controls. Okay, let's see a diagram first. Now, this is a security guard, and this is the IT department. This is a unauthorized user. If this person wants to go into the IT department, first he will be stopped by security guard for authentication. Unless and until he gives valid proof of his identity, security guard will not let him inside the IT department. Okay, so this is a physical control. This is a physical access control. After he convinces the security guard that he is the member of the organization and he must be allowed access to the IT department, then he will go into the IT department. But again, before entering into the IT department, there will be additional authorization procedures. He will have to give his fingerprints, do retina scanning, or use his login ID password to gain access to the IT department. So now these measures which involve login ID password, fingerprints, retina scanning and all, these are called as logical access controls. So first physical controls, then logical controls. Now let's see what are logical controls. We'll start with logical access controls. Yes, you must have seen the video. Let me explain it once again. This person, he is trying to impersonate an army officer. He enters the army base by using their language or acting as an officer. What they do is, before entering the organization, they place a terminal above the IT room so that it can hack all the system within its 500-meter radius. They uploaded a fake identity of this person into the database. So it took a little time to give him access, but in the end they ended up hacking the system and this person was able to gain access to the organization. So we don't want that to happen. There was a security guard, but security guard also knows limited information. That is why we are using logical access controls. Once again, why we are using logical access controls? To restrict unauthorized access and protect integrity of data. Now let's see what is logical access path. First component is online terminal. Whenever we are trying to connect with the server, we will try to connect it from our online terminal. We will first enter our credentials, that is login ID and password, plus additional mechanisms. What is additional mechanism? Like smart cards, fingerprints, or retina scanning. The more additional mechanisms you have, the more your stronger security measures will be. Then the next component is dial-up ports. These dial-up ports connect the data transmission lines. Here we convert the digital data into analog data using modem. before transmission, and for receiving data, we will convert the analog data into digital data. So this is possible only if you have dial-up ports. This encryption and all. If you don't have dial-up ports, then data will be sent and it may be able to hack without taking a lot of efforts. Now, remember, for encryption, there are algorithms. Cracking those algorithms is a bit difficult. That is why we are using dial-up ports. Then the third component is telecommunication network. These are basically data transmission lines. What a telecommunication network does is it connects the online terminals to the host so that we can access data from the server. These telecommunication network must also have the controls so that this perpetrator, intruder, hacker, or threat agent shall not tap into those data transmission lines and gain access to the organization. Now let's see what are the technical exposures in case of logical access control. Even if you have a logical access controls at 3 levels: online terminals, dial-up ports, and telecommunication network, still these are the problems that you may face in case of logical access controls. So the better your service provider is, the better the logical access controls will be. Now, the first exposure is data diddling. It is changing data before and after it has entered into the system. What hacker will do is he will change the nature of the data, or he will make some alterations which will render the data to become unusable. You cannot use the data after the perpetrator has changed it. So what is happening here is the data integrity of the data is lost. So data diddling can happen. After that, bombs. In that, there is a time bomb or a logic bomb. Now, what is a time bomb? Your computer has a time which is displayed in the right bottom corner of your screen. What the perpetrator will do is he will install a program into the computer. It will be downloaded illegally on the computer, and the program will be set that as on 15th August 2020, we shall duplicate all these files and disrupt all the information in the terminal. So as soon as the date on the laptop turns to 15th August 2020, the program will start itself, and the data and all, it will start duplicating itself, causing the system to overload. And after the system overloads, the system will crash. That is basically a time bomb. Now, what happened here is, here the condition was set to time. Okay, it was set to a specific time. Now what we will do is, instead of using specific time, we will introduce a logic into the program that if a person, he opens this file or he performs such action, this program will be activated. That is called a logic bomb. Like you are disabling your antivirus, or you are activating application software which has illegitimate coding. So that is basically what is logic bomb. It is activated after you do a specific action. Then Trojan horse. This is one of the classics. It is a legitimate program containing illicit coding. So what it will do is, when you download application software, the application software is a legal program, but what the hackers will do is, if there are some vulnerabilities in the application software, they will try to exploit it, and they will attach some illicit coding to that software, so that whenever that software is downloaded by any user in the world, along with the software, that coding will also be downloaded. Now this coding, it remains dormant for some time, but when you start using that application software, it activates itself and starts causing potential loss to the terminals. That is what is a Trojan horse. We talked about the story of a wolf and 10 sheep. Slowly the sheep started disappearing because there was a wolf looking like a sheep. That was Trojan horse. Once again, data diddling, time bomb, logic bomb, Trojan horse. Data diddling, time bomb, logic bomb, Trojan horse. Now what we will do is we will see 4 points at a time so that doesn't become very monotonous. Now worms, the full form of worms is write once, read many. Once you open this application or this document, it will start replicating itself. It will start reproducing itself. It will keep on doing that till the memory space on the computer it is fully utilized, and after it achieves that level, it finally overloads the system. After the system is overloaded, it crashes. So this is the function of worms. The reproduction is till the system crashes. That is why we have the full form: write once, read many. The next one is rounding down. In a banking company or insurance company, there are a large number of users, large number of bank accounts, insurance accounts, claim accounts, and all. What the perpetrator will do is he will install a software or he will attach a coding to the software of the organization that whatever the amount is in decimals, that will be transferred to the account of the perpetrator. Like the account balance is 50,000.25 or 60,000.01. What will happen is that 0.25 and 0.01 from all the accounts of the organization, they will be transferred to the perpetrator account automatically. The thing is, if you don't keep a track on these accounts, you will not be able to notice this. And even if we notice this, we will say that these are just some bank charges deducted by the bank. We need not worry about it. So it is very difficult to find these technical exposures of rounding down. Then salami technique. Now instead of transferring a fraction, we will slice a small amount and transfer. Like 12.36, 12.45. These are basically services charges or cess or some other taxes or bank charges that the bank deducts for the transactions executed by us during a time period. So that is what is a salami technique. Then we have trapdoor. Now what is trapdoor? There is a security guard standing at the gate of the organization. He will not allow anyone without proper identification. Every person will be given access only if he has proper identification. Now instead of giving proper identification, what hacker will do is he will ask some different question to the manager to psych him out. Once he psychs him out, security guard will forget his procedure of entry and identification. So that question he asked to psych him out, that is what is unauthorized logic. Using this unauthorized logic, the hacker will gain access to the system. So that is a trapdoor. Or you can say that we install a program into the system. Once you open that program, the entire system will shut down. So it is basically like a logic bomb, but it is not just disrupting the system. Once that application is opened, the hacker will also gain access to the system. So the difference between logic bomb and trapdoor is logic bomb will disrupt the system, trapdoor will give the unauthorized user access to the system. It is not just a bomb. It will give access to the system. So worms, rounding down, salami technique, trapdoor. Worms, rounding down, salami technique, trapdoor. The earlier 4 points were data diddling, time bomb, logic bomb, and only bombs. Now worms, rounding down, salami technique, and trapdoor. Yes, Trojan horse. Once again, data diddling, logic bomb, time bomb, Trojan horse, then worms, rounding down, salami technique, and trapdoor. Now the memory technique you can use to remember this is, there was a worm sitting on a Trojan horse. He started throwing bombs on data diddling. When he properly saw, while throwing bombs, he fell down. Once he fell down, he realized it was a trapdoor. And just add salami in the end. So this was your question on technical exposures. Yes, are you able to understand? I am repeating it again and again so that it gets registered automatically. Yes, everyone is understanding?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll continue. Now, asynchronous attacks. Now, what is asynchronous attacks? For these attacks, you cannot predict them. What will happen is, the hacker will find a certain lag or a gap between activities, and then he will try to exploit that gap. So these are asynchronous attacks. When data is being transmitted through telecommunication network, these attacks will be done by the hacker. Now let's see one by one what are these attacks. First one is data leakage. Now,
So please repeat asynchronous attack.
Asynchronous attacks, what will happen is, the hacker, he will see a gap between processes, such as you have sent some outdated files for shredding. So there is a time gap before they are actually shredded by the shredding machine. So the hacker, before these documents are shredded, what he will do is he will try to make digital copies of them, and what he will do is he will exploit that time gap. So that is basically what is an asynchronous attack. Okay, when the data is being transmitted through telecommunication network, it will try to attack the system and gain information. These are asynchronous attacks, means it will exploit gaps in processes. Now let's see one by one what are these attacks. First one is data leakage. Whenever you delete a file from your personal computer, from your mobile or your online terminals, you have to know that you are just not given the access to use them after that, but they are still in the system. If you are using a recovery software, you can still recover all the deleted files. After a specific period of time, those files are deleted from your system also. For example, if you have a Word file on your laptop, even if you delete that Word file, it will just appear that the file has been deleted from your laptop, but that file stays on your laptop for at least 30 days. So if you use any recovery software, you can still recover that Word file. Now, for individuals like us, the cost of recovery is around 7,000 to 8,000 rupees. you can recover whatever files you have deleted within the last 30 days. But if it is for an IT organization, the recovery software costs around millions. That is because the value of information for an individual and an organization. So now what will happen is the organization will delete some files, it will dump some documents on either the server or the online terminals. So what this hacker will do is it will use some recovery software. He knows that these files are deleted. He will recover those files within that time gap of 30 days. That is basically what is data leakage. We need to take additional measures that if a file is deleted, even access to the deleted files is restricted. That is what is data leakage. For example, now let's take a hypothetical example. If you have given a test series, you know there are you now have your answer sheets. You don't want to disclose your answer sheets to someone, okay, a certain person. So what you will do is you will shred them all, but you will shred them all only after you have understood what are the problems with in the mark sheets. You will make analysis of your performance in the mark sheets, and then you will shred them. So the time gap is you are making analysis of the issues in your mark sheets. So during that time gap, that person will attack and he will gain information from that mark sheet. So that is basically what is data leakage. Before dumping or after deleting, he will obtain that information. That is data leakage. Here the emphasis on we are trying to deliberately delete or dump these documents, and these are exploited by the hacker. Now the next one is wiretapping. It is spying using devices and wires. What will happen is we will attach a device to the data transmission lines if they are visible. That is what is basically wiretapping. This is a very old concept. The telephone lines, we will attach a device to it so that whenever this person gets a call, automatically we can hear using this tapping software whatever he is talking or whatever he is hearing. The police and the army personnel, they use these techniques. Now why we call it asynchronous attacks? Before we receive the call and after we receive the call, this device will be not in our control. Before we receive the call, this device will be attached to the data transmission lines, and after the call has ended, automatically this device will disappear, so that there is no evidence that the data transmission lines were tapped. This is also asynchronous attacks, spying using devices and wires. Then piggybacking. Now what is piggybacking?
So, could you just repeat it? Why it is asynchronous attacks?
Why it is a asynchronous attack?
Yes, sir.
See, before we receive the call, we are not checking whether the call is tapped or not. If we check it, then the hacker will not be able to do this attack. But if we don't check, then he will record the entire call. And after he records the entire call, the device will disappear. So there is a gap between receiving the call and checking the controls. Now that gap, if there is a window, he will be able to exploit it. If there is no window, he will not be able to exploit it. Yes, shall we continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we are just spying on the information. See, asynchronous attack, it doesn't just have to be exploiting the gap in a process. It it is also called a non-systematic attack. You cannot understand when the attack will be done. Like wiretapping, it may not be for an entire day, it may be for a certain event. It is very difficult to understand when and how the wires were tapped. So asynchronous attack also means the attack is in a non-systematic way. Then piggybacking. Here we follow the authorized user. Now, let's take a personal example. Your parents, they are accessing their Google accounts from their respective mobiles. Now they are not able to access a certain program. So they will ask you for your help. What you will do is, first, you will log in your own account and then log in your parents' account so that you can monitor the activity that your parents are doing, as well as you can see whatever parents are accessing and watching on their mobile phones or any other terminals. So that is basically piggybacking. Your parents are the authorized users, but what you have done is you have put a screening software so that you can see whatever information is accessed by you, by your parents. Okay, so you are an unauthorized user, your parents are the authorized user. An unauthorized user is using a software to monitor what all is done by the authorized user. Also, once you get the information and credentials just by monitoring, you can access the system on your own, pretending as your authorized user. That is basically piggybacking. We will follow an authorized user into the system. After that, denial of services. We will overload the system to deny any access. Some systems, they have this program that if there is overload, there is too much resources, it will shut down automatically to preserve the data inside the database. This is a preventive measure. It is not something bad or any problem with the program. If it is going to overload and if the system comes to know that the system is going to overload, it shuts down automatically. Now, this shutting down of the program, it can be used in a strategic way by the hacker. If it wants to deny access to a certain person, what it will do is it will just tell the program that the system is going to overload and automatically access will be denied for that certain person at that certain time. So unless and until he gives that instructions, the system will not overload. See, now this is different than time bomb and logic bomb, because time bomb and logic bomb, it is downloaded into the system, but the hacker, he is not using those, he's not having access to that time bomb and logic bomb. He will just download it into someone's computer and then the programs will be executed on its own. In denial of services, the hacker will be connected to the system till it wants to deny access to the host or the online terminal. So that is denial of services. So these were the 4 asynchronous attacks, non-systematic attacks, or exploiting gaps between process attacks in relation to logical access controls. Once again, data leakage, wiretapping, piggybacking, denial of services. Data leakage, wiretapping, piggybacking, denial of services. You can remember this by using a memory technique. Piggy wrapped around the data and denied it. Piggy wrapped around the data and denied it. What is wrapping? It is actually wiretapping. We are calling it wrapping. Now let's see what are the exposures. What will happen if logical access controls are exploited by the perpetrator?
So one doubt in asynchronous attack. What about the subversive threats, that invasive tap and inductive tap? We did not study that.
Yes, can you repeat once again?
No, another one is given as subversive threats. So isn't that
I am not able to understand.
no, sir? There's one more hair subheading given as subversive threats, invasive tap and inductive tap.
Okay,
So isn't
there is an additional point called subversive threat. That is what you're asking.
yes, sir? Should we leave it or just?
Yes, we will take it later, but just now for this, remember these 4 points. I think in my material. Okay, forget it. We will take it later. Then we have, then we will see what are the computer crime exposures. What is the impact if the logical access controls are exploited by the hacker? First one is financial loss. The hacker will withdraw large amounts of money from the bank accounts of the organization. So financial loss. Then legal repercussions. The IT organizations are entrusted with the privacy and security. If it is not able to maintain the privacy and security, then obviously it will be exposed to expensive lawsuits because it is their sole responsibility and they are not just personally but criminally liable. After that, loss of credibility. If a company is providing antivirus softwares, it is supposed to maintain the trust with the customers and provide information security, privacy. If it is not able to do that, if it is not able to maintain that kind of trust, it will lose its credibility. Then blackmail. Once the system is compromised and all the information is captured by the hacker, he will start blackmailing the organization to give him access to certain resources, or he will blackmail the company for some strategic information. After this, once again, financial loss, legal repercussions, loss of credibility, blackmail. Financial loss, legal repercussions, loss of credibility, blackmail. Financial loss, legal repercussions, loss of credibility, blackmail. After this, disclosure of confidential information. He will give the strategic information of the company to the newspapers so that they can print it in the print media or share it on the social media. Then sabotage. The employees and the competitors, as soon as they come to know some information about the organization that can help them in destroying the company, they will leak it or give it to their competitors or someone who can use that information. So that is basically sabotage. And then spoofing, that is forging the source address and interacting. What we will do is we will hack one source address. Whenever someone tries to access that source address, it will look like he's actually interacting with the system, but it is just a simulation that is happening and no information will be relayed here. That is basically spoofing. It will look like you are interacting with the system, but you are not interacting with the system. It is just a fake software you are interacting with. That is what is a spoofing. Like there are a lot of applications on the Play Store. They look like they are useful and all, but once you download them, you understand that it is a useless app. It is just for wasting your data. So that is basically what is spoofing. It will look like you're interacting with the software, but it is not the software you are expecting. So that is a fake software. So that is spoofing. Now, once again, disclosure of confidential information, sabotage, spoofing. Disclosure of confidential information, sabotage, spoofing. Now, once again, from the beginning, we will cover all the points for logical access controls. What are the three components? online terminal, dial-up ports, telecommunication network, then technical exposures, data diddling, logic bomb, time bomb, Trojan horse, then worms, rounding down, salami technique, trapdoor, then computer crime exposures, wiretapping, data leakage, piggybacking, denial of services, and then computer crime exposures, legal repercussions, financial loss, loss of credibility, blackmail, and then disclosure of confidential information, sabotage, and spoofing. We will stop here with the logical access controls.